wasting no mother of pearl! Sterling scores! Welcome to the heavyweight bout between Sterling's face and everything else!
Hello, in this video we will be reviewing the sport of volleyball. Volleyball originated in 1895 and it's a combination of basketball, baseball, tennis, and handball. The origin for the term, the set spike play, is unknown.
Scholars maintain that the translation was lost hundreds of years ago.
But it is said to have occurred in the Philippines in 1916. In 1928, the United States Volleyball Association was formed and the sport was codified into its modern form. In my opinion, the combination of the sports makes volleyball a high-pressure sport and an exciting sport to watch. The playing format of volleyball is similar to that of tennis. They're played in a series of sets to a specific amount of points. Matches can be anywhere from 60 minutes to even 180 minutes in volleyball, with a lot of powerful repetitive movements and intermittent play. Some of the rule changes in volleyball have permitted positions to become more specialized. So in addition to the usual roles and designated positions, there's also the libero and the defensive specialist. Now, the difference between the two is that the libero only plays in the back row, cannot block or attempt to block, and they will only be allowed to serve for one person and one person only. And the defensive specialist would normally rotate in for a front row player that maybe lacks the skills of the back row or what's needed in the back row. So the defensive specialist would come in and go through the rotation of the back row, and then once they reach the end of that rotation, they would substitute out, and the front row would substitute back in. Before the ball is put into service, the players must go into specific designated areas by their position or where they're rotating through. But after the ball is served, where they line up and the patterns and formations will be dictated on the coaching style and their game plan. Also, the libero and the defensive specialist, they can be on the court at the same time. Even though amateur league seasons are generally about 3 months in duration, amateur athletes, they can still play year-round just like professionals. This even includes like the beach and snow variations of the sport, where obviously the beach would just layer up. They would stay in the same like northern hemisphere and they would just add layers and then go out onto the beach and play, or they could travel to a warmer hemisphere and play, and the opposite would hold true for like the snow enthusiast. As mentioned before, volleyball matches can last over 60 minutes in duration with intermittent play, so the aerobic capacity of both the cardiovascular system and the muscular system must be high in order to meet the demands of the sport. Now, the work versus rest ratio in volleyball, I feel, is a little tricky sometimes because players rotate through the positions, and the team tactics could dictate how much a certain player works depending on like where they're standing on the court or in their zone. So that can kind of like skew, like if you take like a whole team, the work versus rest ratio, and you're just kind of averaging, the average may not give you the individual like requirement for the position. And that could also vary from game to game. Like some teams might change up, the areas they're targeting or attacking based on maybe what they see as a player's weakness in. The majority of injuries in volleyball occur in the lower body. That's not to say the upper body doesn't have its fair share in the shoulder or wrist. Some key areas to be watchful of, though, are the landings and when athletes are pivoting in and out of positions. Some of the skills in volleyball are simple, but they're at the same time they're complex in their physiological demand, and also the cognitive skills are complex as well. There's the hand-eye coordination, especially with a good and proper serve, but also just it's the speed of play, and you have to have like a really well-developed like reactionary base. This is the International Volleyball Federation's 6 keys of volleyball, or 6 areas of volleyball. You can go to their website and see this on there as well. Here is a qualitative movement diagnosis card for the block and the indoor variation of volleyball. There is a difference between some of the minute factors that go into indoor versus the sand, so the hard surface versus the sand surface. But I will provide a video that you can use as a reference and see if what the athlete does or doesn't do well. Testing in volleyball can include submaximal and also maximal tests. It would just depend on the athlete's ability and their experience within the testing. And not all tests need to be done all at once or on the same day. This is a general overview of how 2 different types of seasons could go. So in the top, the amateur season there is just 1 competitive block in the season or in the year, and in the professional there's 2, with that June block being like a championship round or something. In volleyball, I would say deceleration and landing technique are definitely critical at the onset of training, and also the ability to sustain multiple landings is paramount. So building that sort of resiliency and ability.
Born and bred up on the street tops, get the money in the sweet spot, and forever Halloween. When we see cops, you cops be robbing niggas blind with the dollars in his
is critical to success. Once the athlete gets into the intermediate zone of experience and age and all that, training age and age in the sport, you can start to really differentiate in the positions and sort of go into bringing out the motor qualities for those positions. So whether they're a defensive specialist or the libero, or they're a really good front row player, you can really go into that in this block of training. Because volleyball has some very high pressure and high intense instances, they're referred to as the rallies. So I would prefer in the advanced stage to really focus on reaction and maintaining a high anaerobic specific motor qualities, and just making sure their reaction and their speed to moving is still top notch, because as the older you get, you start to lose motor, or your motor qualities start to diminish, and the reaction time is critical in volleyball. Here's a slide on some of the possibilities of additional content I can provide on volleyball, and maybe do a case study and have our fictional athlete put some test numbers in and then come up with a periodized plan for whether it's indoor or beach or snow or something like that. So that is all. That wraps it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it, and thank you.